Welcome back, viewers. You're watching WION World is One. I'm Shivan Channa. This is Speed News. Let's get started. Israeli airstrikes in Yemen's capital Sana'a killed at least 6 and left 86 injured. The strikes are the latest in over a year of direct attacks and counter-strikes between Israel and Houthi militants in Yemen, part of a spillover from the war in Gaza. The Israeli military said the targets included a military compound housing the presidential palace, 2 power plants and a fuel storage site on Friday. The Houthis said they had fired a ballistic missile towards Israel in their latest attack, which they said was in support of Palestinians in Gaza. The IDF chief has signaled a potential openness to a truce as Israeli forces continue airstrikes on Gaza. This comes in the backdrop of expanded military operations by the Israeli forces in the Gaza region. Israeli planes and tanks pounded the eastern and northern outskirts of Gaza City overnight, Saturday to Sunday, destroying buildings and homes. On Sunday, the Israeli military said that its forces have returned to combat in the Jabalia area in recent days to dismantle Hamas tunnels and strengthen control of the area. The posthumous memoir by Virginia Giuffre, one of Jeffrey Epstein's most prominent accusers, will be published this autumn. Virginia died in April at the age of 41 and her death was ruled a suicide. According to the Associated Press, the 400-page book will be published on the 21st of October by Alfred A. Knopf as the memoir's publisher. Rain-battered Vietnam's coastal city of Vinh, where Typhoon Kajiki is expected to make landfall later in the day. More than 325,500 residents in 5 coastal provinces will be moved to schools and public buildings, which have turned into temporary evacuation centers. National carrier Vietnam Airlines and Vietjet announced the flight cancellations ahead of Typhoon Kajiki's landfall. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services reported the first human case in the United States of travel-associated New World screwworm, a flesh-eating parasite from an outbreak-affected country. The case involves a patient who returned from travel to El Salvador. The case, investigated by the Maryland Department of Health and the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, was confirmed by the CDC as New World screwworm on the 4th of August. China held an overnight rehearsal for an upcoming military parade to mark the 80th anniversary of victory over Japan and the end of World War II. China will unveil new domestically produced military hardware. President Xi Jinping will inspect the troops in the capital's Tiananmen Square on the 3rd of April during the event, which his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin and other world leaders are expected to attend. Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla arrived in his hometown of Lucknow. To a grand welcome, he was received at the airport by Deputy Chief Minister Brijesh Pathak and his family. Accompanied by his proud family, Shubhanshu Shukla waved to large crowds as a victory parade was carried out to celebrate his homecoming. Cambodian parliamentarians passed a legislation allowing people who collude with foreign countries to be stripped of citizenship. All 120 lawmakers in attendance at the National Assembly session, including Prime Minister Hun Manet, voted unanimously to approve the bill. Rights monitors have long accused Cambodia's government of using draconian laws to stifle opposition and legitimate political debate. The legislation must still be passed by Cambodia's upper house before being enacted by the head of state, but both are considered rubber stamp steps. Bill Gates, the chair of the Gates Foundation and co-founder of Microsoft, met with Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba and other officials in Tokyo. Speaking to reporters after the talks, Gates said they discussed key global health activities and the innovations taking place in Japan. Third arrest has been made in Noida dowry murder case. Nikki Bhatti's brother-in-law, Rohit Bhatti, has been arrested in the alleged dowry murder of the 28-year-old woman. Nikki died of severe burn injuries during treatment at Delhi's Safdarjung Hospital after she was allegedly assaulted and set on fire at her in-laws' home in Greater Noida. Just last week on Thursday, Nikki Bhatti was murdered over the alleged dowry demand of 36 lakh rupees. Her husband, Vipin Bhatti, and mother-in-law, Daya, were arrested. India's envoy to Russia, Vinay Kumar, asserted that New Delhi will continue to take measures which protect its national interest in an interview with Russia's state-run TASS news agency published on Sunday. India's envoy to Russia, Vinay Kumar, said that New Delhi's priority is ensuring energy security of the country's 1.4 billion people. India informed Pakistan about the flood situation in Tavi River via its Indian High Commission to their foreign ministry, and this was not done through the Indus Waters Treaty, which remains in abeyance. This is the first time India has used this mechanism to alert Pakistan about the flood situation via the High Commission. Heavy rainfall has caused severe flooding in Jammu and Kashmir, with 190.4 mm of rain recorded in 24 hours, the second highest August downpour in a century. Rivers such as Tavi, Chenab, Ravi and Basantar remain in spate, prompting high alerts from disaster response teams. Flights connecting Delhi could be impacted today due to bad weather conditions in the national capital. Weather Office IMD has predicted showers in the national capital today. Air India took to X to advise its passengers to check the status of their flights to and from the national capital before heading to the airport. In the past 24 hours, Jammu city recorded 190.4 mm of rainfall, which is the second highest for the period in a century. The highest 228.6 mm was recorded on the 5th of August 1926. The weather department has issued an alert for intense rainfall with possibility of cloudbursts, flash floods and landslides in high altitude areas till August 27th. Heavy rains battered most parts of Jammu and Kashmir overnight, triggering flood-like situations in several low-lying areas. A thick orange haze from the picket fire in California on Saturday engulfed the area as firefighters battled to contain it. The California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection said the blaze in the popular wine region of Napa County had grown to over 6,803 acres, of which 11% was contained. The streets of West London have been filled with colour and sound for the annual Notting Hill Carnival. Musicians and dancers in bright costumes took to the tarmac for the children's parade to celebrate the largest street party in Europe.
Each of the sound systems.
Oil prices inched higher on Monday as Ukraine stepped up drone strikes on Russian energy infrastructure, and that raised fears of supply disruptions. Analysts warn the risks for crude are tilting upward as Ukraine finds success in targeting Russian facilities. At the same time, markets drew support from the prospect of a US interest rate cut after Fed Chair Jerome Powell signaled easing next month, boosting investor appetite for commodities. The US dollar tried to steady on Monday after Fed Chair Jerome Powell's dovish turn at Jackson Hole drove it to a 4-week low against the euro. Powell signaled that the Fed could cut rates as soon as September, citing rising risks to jobs that sent the dollar sliding more than 1% on Friday. Though it clawed back modestly in Asian trade, traders are now pricing in an 80%. That's 80% chance of a quarter-point cut next month and nearly 50 basis points of easing by year-end. The greenback's weakness has also been compounded by President Trump's attacks on Powell and other Fed officials, stoking concerns over central bank independence. The Indian rupee's trajectory this week will hinge on US trade policy as Washington prepares to impose an additional 25% tariff on Indian goods. The rupee may find early support from a weaker US dollar after Powell signaled a possible September rate cut. However, traders warn that tariffs will dominate sentiment. On the bond side, India's 10-year benchmark yield saw its biggest rise in over 3 years as fears of fiscal slippage grew following GST reform announcements. Focus will now be on fiscal cues and key data including GDP, industrial output and fiscal deficit later this week. India has officially granted a unified license to Starlink, allowing the Elon Musk-led satellite internet company to roll out services in the country. The approval comes with strict security conditions. Starlink must set up Earth station gateways in India, and all user data originating from or destined for India cannot be routed through gateways abroad. The rules also ban copying, decryption or mirroring of Indian data outside the country. Minister of State for Communications, India, P. Chandrasekhar said the move will boost India's satellite communication sector, creating new jobs in installation, operation and maintenance of telecom networks. With this approval, Starlink becomes eligible to offer broadband services directly to Indian consumers. Apple is reportedly in preliminary talks to license Google's Gemini artificial intelligence model to power a future version of its Siri voice assistant. According to Bloomberg report, the iPhone maker recently approached Google to explore building a custom AI model that would serve as the foundation of the new Siri next year. The iPhone maker is testing two versions of the assistant, one powered by its own model, codenamed Linwood, and another using outside technology dubbed Glenwood. The move comes after Apple delayed Siri's long-awaited upgrade by a year due to engineering issues, leading to a leadership reshuffle. Google has already begun training a model to run on Apple servers, while Apple has also spoken to Anthropic and OpenAI. SpaceX called off a planned test flight of its Starship rocket just minutes before launch, citing a technical problem with ground systems. The cancellation marked another setback for Elon Musk's giant rocket, which has faced repeated failures in recent months. Starship was set to take off on its 10th major mission from SpaceX's South Texas launch facility, Starbase, but about 15 minutes before liftoff, the company posted on X saying, standing down from today's 10th flight of Starship to allow time to troubleshoot an issue with ground systems. SpaceX has been testing Starship for future satellite and crew missions, but setbacks continue. Two flights this year exploded within minutes, another lost control after failing to deploy dummy satellites, and one rocket blew up during fueling in June. OpenAI, the company behind popular generative AI chatbot ChatGPT, has warned its investors that they could lose their investment or may not see any returns in a post-artificial general intelligence world. The company further stated that it may be difficult to know what kind of role money will play in a world where AGI has been achieved. A warning on the OpenAI's website read that it may be difficult to know what role money will play in a post-AGI world. The website also added that investing in OpenAI Global LLC is a high-risk investment.